How to escape status anxiety and do whatever the hell you want. It's a very powerful story about a Zen monk who lived in China a couple thousand years ago. And this Zen monk really didn't give a shit what anyone thought. In fact, he was just so at peace within himself. He didn't have any regard for really anyone. He loved everyone, but he didn't really care what people thought about him. And while this Zen monk was alive, there was a powerful king who rose up. And this king was very proud, very arrogant, very egotistical, and he ended up going around the entire nation and surrounding nations, slaughtering anyone who refused to bow down to him. Literally chopping their heads off, butchering them, killing anyone who disobeyed him, anyone who ruffled his feathers. And one day, this king heard about this Zen monk who refused to worship him. And he was absolutely outraged. When one of his guards told him this, he lost the plot and was in a fit of rage. And he said, "Show me where this Zen monk lives. I'm gonna go and find him right now and threaten him and make him worship me." So he goes and finds the Zen monk, goes to the temple, and there's the Zen monk, sure enough, sitting there in meditation, eyes closed. The king storms up to him and he says, "You, earthling, Zen monk, is it true that you refuse to worship me? Speak to me now." And the Zen monk just continues meditating without even opening his eyes. He's just so blissed out. And the king says to him, in a fit of outrage, now he's like foaming at the mouth, eyes red, ready to destroy this Zen monk. He says to him, "You, don't you know that I could chop your head off without even blinking an eye?" And finally, the Zen monk, at hearing this, opens his eyes, opens one eye just slightly, looks at the king, and says to him, "Don't you know that I could die without even blinking an eye? Don't you know that I could die without even blinking an eye?" And as the king hears this, suddenly he realizes that he is completely powerless. He has no power. All the force and all of the coercion and fear that he used to drive people around and force people to do things that they didn't want to do was suddenly gone in an instant because this Zen monk didn't give a shit about dying. He just didn't care. And so the king falls down on his face and pledges to become the disciple of the Zen monk. I love that story. I think that's so powerful. And so when you ask yourself the question, how can you escape status anxiety? How can you get off this treadmill of wanting to look good in front of other people, wanting to impress people, whether it's your peers or your parents or your social group or just society in general? We all, deep down, as we go through life, we're programmed to have this fear of what others think about us. And we end up living our lives accordingly. We get ourselves on the treadmill of chasing money or status or whatever it may be. There's an amazing book called Status Anxiety written by Alain de Botton. Sorry, I pronounced that wrong. Alain de Botton. I'll put the link in the description below. But basically he describes how much stress and anxiety and disease this whole way of thinking creates in our society. It creates all kinds of problems. And the only way to get out of this is by doing the following. Here's what I've discovered along my journey, because I used to be stuck in that. In fact, I spent a good many years chasing status, and it was only when I nearly had a breakdown that I realized this has to stop. And that's what led me to the discovery I'm about to share with you. So there's basically 3 stages we go through in life, in our spiritual development. And a lot of people get stuck on the first or second, okay? So the first one is all about getting. The first spiritual development stage you'll go through in life is all about getting. It's where all you care about is getting the possessions that you need to survive and then to look good. You can think of this as almost like the teenage years, but again, a lot of people get stuck here in their 20s, 30s, 40s, some people their whole life. They're always oriented around getting more. Whether it's the clothes, the cars, the houses, the possessions, the sexy wife, the trophy husband, the kids who are all performing well in school. A lot of people get stuck in this getting stage. And the only way to get through the getting stage is to realize, either through getting everything you want and realizing it's not enough, or to look at other people who've got everything they want and realize that they're not really happy anyway. And so you progress to the next stage, which is all about doing. In the doing stage, which is where I used to identify with a lot. I spent a lot of years in the doing stage. It's all about doing so that you can show others and you can show yourself just how good you are. So this is where we push ourselves to succeed in an academic sense, or in an artistic sense, or in any kind of sense where we feel like we're contributing to the world, so therefore we're valuable, okay? So we might be really proud because we're a doctor, or we might be really proud because we always get the best grades, or we might be really proud because we have an amazing job which helps and gives back to the community. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. However, if we get stuck in the doing stage, again, our happiness is always dependent on our performance, which is why you can still have a lot of status anxiety and you can still really care about what people think when you're in the second stage of doing. And I certainly was stuck in this stage for a long time, and it was really painful for me because every time someone did better than me, every time someone was doing more to be a good person than me, I was like, well, I feel shit now. I have to improve and be better than that. So that's the second stage, okay? And the way, again, that you get through the doing stage is either by growing so much in yourself, doing so much that you get tired and eventually you realize it's not enough and it's never going to satisfy you, or by simply reflecting in this process of becoming more aware, raising your consciousness, which I talk about in other videos, and being completely honest with yourself about what is truly going to make you happy. That's how you get through that stage. So then that brings you to the third stage, and this is the stage where you don't have status anxiety, where you literally do not care what people think anymore, and you're free to do whatever it truly is that you want to do. Because here's the reality, some people actually enjoy living on the street. Some people like being bums. Some people like going and living a life of poverty in India and helping the sick and needy. Some people like to live in caves. Some people like to be party animals, and that's literally how they like to spend their time. And no one can really know what it is that you truly like doing except for you, which is why only when you get to the being stage can you know freedom from other people's opinions, and can you truly experience what it's like to live a fully realized life, where it's completely up to you what you do. So how do you get into the being stage? How do you really embrace the being stage? Well, like I've shared, number one, you need to get to the end of yourself, or you need to question what it is you're doing very, very honestly. For me, it took a near breakdown. So I pushed myself and I pushed myself and I pushed myself because I was under the illusion that doing was where it was all at, until finally I had the epiphany moment and I realized that my doing wasn't actually helping people as much as I thought it was. In fact, if you want a really hard truth, no one can really, truly help anyone else who isn't ready to be helped, okay? In fact, you can only be helped if you choose to be helped. So if you're in this illusion of thinking that you've just got to keep doing, you've got to keep performing, you've got to keep running around, helping other people because that's where your identity is, you're going to have a rude awakening one day where you realize that you're not actually really helping other people as much as you might think you are. And they're actually drawing that into their lives if they're being helped. But the responsibility isn't on you to help anyone. The only responsibility that you have in this life is to experience and to be. And that's the only place you're going to know ultimate freedom. So I encourage you, look into this journey of being more. There are many different ways that you can discover this, but like I always recommend, meditation and contemplation and self-honesty, deep self-honesty, which you can achieve through doing shadow work, which I'll link to how to do that in the description below. So I hope you enjoyed that video. Thank you for watching. Please share that with someone who would benefit from it. Namaste.